Ryan had been driving for hours. The kind of drive where the GPS bar turned gray and the cell service cut out completely. He was heading toward an old buddy's cabin for a visit. Ryan had never been there before. The property was tucked in the remote mountains, vague directions he got from his friend. You'll know it when you see it. Just keep on the dirt road past the quarry, just off of Timberlane Road. The sun had already dipped below the tree line. His headlights bounced across uneven gravel as he turned onto the dirt road. Dust rose in plumes behind him, swallowed by the thickening dark. After 10 minutes, he noticed some odd shapes carved into the trees. At first, they looked like hunting markers. But the deeper he drove, the stranger they became. Circles with crosses, jagged runes, and crude stick figures nailed into the bark. Ryan slowed. His gut told him to turn around, but the road was too narrow. That's when he saw the car. An old Mustang sat angled in the ditch, lights off, door hanging open. Its interior was black and vacant. He slowed to a crawl, rolling past, craning his neck to see if anyone needed help. That's when a snap echoed in the woods. Branch-breaking footsteps. It was close. His instincts screamed at him to keep moving, so he did. But the road ahead twisted like a snake, and the deeper he went, the worse the carvings became. Whole trees were stripped bare, symbols gouged into their bark, the dirt road lined with small piles of bones. Animal, he hoped. And then, the road ended. No cabin. No turnoff. Just a dead end, where the forest pressed in tight. Just a big opening of gravel road. Ryan cursed under his breath, heart hammering. He shifted into reverse. That's when the headlights flared on behind him. A blinding beam lit the trees. It was the Mustang, the one he'd passed. Only now, its engine growled, and it rolled slowly toward him, boxing him into this area with no escape. The Mustang stopped and men stepped out of the car. Tall, thin silhouettes, 4 or 5 of them, faces wrapped in burlap sacks, each marked with the same carved symbols he'd seen on the trees. They didn't rush. They just walked, steady and certain, carrying something long and sharp in their hands. Ryan's breath fogged the windshield. He hit the horn, useless in the empty night. His eyes darted. Any way out, any break in the woods. Then he saw it. A narrow path, barely wide enough for his car, cutting into the trees to the left. He had no choice but to try. He slammed the wheel and gunned it. Branches tore at his paint, cracked the windshield, clawed at his skin through the window. Behind him, headlights followed, the Mustang forcing its way into the path, metal shrieking against trees. For a mile, the slow, steady chase through the bushy road carried on. The narrow path bucked and twisted, and just when Ryan thought he was gaining distance, just when he dared to hope they had given up, another blockade in front of him. Ryan's tires screeched as the blockade came into view, fallen logs stacked like a wall, symbols painted across them in dripping black. His heart sank. The path was sealed. The Mustang roared behind him, its headlights carving through the trees, horn blaring like some sick war cry. He fumbled at his door handle. His mind screamed run. He threw the door open, stumbling into the night. The woods clawed at him as he bolted between the trees, lungs tearing, vision swimming. Behind him, voices rose. A low chant, guttural and steady, echoing through the forest like a ritual. He didn't look back. He couldn't. His only thought was escape. And then a light. He could see windows of a cabin. His friend's cabin. It had to be, he thought. Relief surged through him like fire in his veins. He sprinted toward it, pounding on the door, screaming Tyler's name. The door creaked open. Inside, his friend stood, silent and withdrawn. to Ryan's terror, two men behind Tyler, their faces hidden beneath a burlap sack marked with the creepy symbols Ryan had seen on his drive. Ryan froze. The chanting swelled behind him. Figures closed in, and in that breathless instant, he knew everything wasn't going to be okay. Lauren, a 37-year-old single mom between jobs and weighed down by life, took a late drive into the Backroads to clear her head. Her headlights barely cut through the suffocating dark. She gripped the wheel so tightly, her knuckles gleamed bone white as the car behind her had been there for miles, never passing, never dropping back. It became very unnerving to her, and her anxiety was building. When she slowed, it slowed. When she sped up, it surged closer. Then, just as suddenly, its headlights blinked out. It was as if the vehicle vanished into thin air. Her breath caught. The emptiness in her mirrors made her skin crawl. She kept driving, ears straining, eyes flicking to the shadows of the moon that pressed close along the tree line. A mile later, she rounded a curve and froze. The same car was there, parked broadside across the road, blocking her path. Its taillights glowed red in the dark, brake lights casting an eerie glare across the gravel. She slammed her brakes, tires shrieking as her sedan skidded to a stop just feet away. Gravel sprayed. Her chest hammered as she fumbled into reverse. That's when the driver's door opened. A man stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with deliberate calm. His face was a blank expression, pale, flat, inhuman in its emptiness. He walked straight toward her. His hand came down on the hood with a metallic crack that rattled her chest. Lauren screamed in terror. The man tried to lunge onto the car, jumping and slamming his hand across the sedan's front end as she sped in reverse down the road. She spun the wheel hard, jerking the car into a half-turn. The sedan fishtailed, straightened, and she gunned it forward, clipping through the ditch edge, branches snapping under her tires as she forced her way back onto the gravel road. In her mirror, the figure dwindled but never moved. He just stood there, watching. She didn't stop until the forest broke and the glow of a gas station spilled across her windshield. Lauren stumbled inside, locked herself in the restroom, and called 911 with trembling hands. Her voice cracked as she told the dispatcher everything. They promised to send a unit fast. Minutes crawled by as she waited inside the gas station with the attendant. Finally, red and blue strobes cut through the glass windows. The officer stepped inside, found her pale and shaking, and gently led her back toward her car. Lauren followed, legs weak, every nerve screaming. The lot was empty except for her sedan sitting under the harsh floodlights. Then she saw it. A sheet of paper tucked beneath the windshield wiper. She froze, stomach turning to ice. The officer slid it free and held it up to the light. Scrawled in thick black marker, "I love chasing girls. See you next time, sweetie." Lauren's knees nearly buckled. The officer scanned the lot, hands going to their holsters. But the night was silent. The road was empty. They never found any suspects. This was one of the most horrifying experiences in Lauren's entire life. She will never forget it, and wondering what would have happened if that man got his hands on her. Thomas and Lillian, a young couple in their mid-20s, wanted to escape the noise of the city. On a crisp Saturday afternoon, they set out for Mystery Lake, a secluded spot hidden deep in the mountains, 15 miles up a forgotten logging road. Thomas remembered going there as a child with his father fishing. Remote, quiet, almost untouched. It seemed like the perfect place to disappear from the world for a while. They drove 20 miles out of town before turning onto the narrow dirt road that wound toward the lake. The car rattled, music blasted, and their spirits were playful and carefree. They were only a couple of miles from the lake when something unexpected caught their eyes. Up ahead, a car sat pulled off to the side. Orange traffic cones were scattered across the road, forming a crude checkpoint. As they rolled closer, the details sharpened. A man in uniform, standing beside an unmarked vehicle. The car didn't look like any patrol unit Thomas had seen before. Its body was dented, its paint chipped, and on the roof sat a single vintage red beacon light, the kind police used decades ago, not the flashing blue and red bars of today. Something about it definitely felt off. As Thomas eased the car toward the cones, he slowed to a stop. The road was completely blocked. A man in uniform stepped forward, mid-50s, with a light beard and aviator sunglasses. His shirt bore a faint stain near the pocket, an odd detail that immediately struck Thomas. "Howdy, folks. How are we doing today?" the man drawled, voice steady but somehow off. Thomas forced a polite smile. "Doing good, sir. Just heading up to Mystery Lake. Is the road open? Haven't been up this way in years." "Yeah, the road's open," the officer replied. "Sorry to trouble you, but we're expecting someone to possibly come through here. Mind if I take a quick look at both your IDs? Just want to make sure you two aren't in any kind of trouble." The request sat heavy with Thomas. They hadn't done anything. Something about the scene felt wrong. The man had the badge, the sidearm, the handcuffs, even a radio clipped to his belt. But the whole picture didn't quite add up. The uniform looked real enough. But that stain, the dated cruiser with its single red light, the way he carried himself, it all gave off a strange vibe. Thomas wanted this to go smoothly. With a quick glance at Lillian, he passed over their identification. The man walked back to his car, disappearing inside for several long minutes. Inside their vehicle, Thomas and Lillian shared anxious whispers between them. "He seems off," Thomas muttered. "You sure he's a real cop?" Lillian only shrugged, her eyes fixated nervously on the road ahead. At last, the man returned, handing their IDs back with an easy grin. "All right then. You two enjoy yourselves up at the lake this afternoon." Relieved but unsettled, Thomas nodded and eased the car forward, the cones sliding aside just enough to let them pass. As they drove on, both knew the encounter would linger in the back of their minds, a shadow cast over what was supposed to be a carefree escape. The two arrived at the lake, and it was everything they had hoped for. Quiet and peaceful. No one else in sight. They laid out their blanket, took a swim in the cool water, and ate the sandwiches they had packed. For nearly 2 hours, it felt like they had left the world behind. Just as they were about to start packing up, they heard the sound of a car coming down the dirt road. Gravel crunched, an engine hummed low and steady. They turned, and to their unease, it was the same police officer in the old cruiser. He pulled up right near them and then climbed out of his vehicle. Without saying a word, he leaned against the hood of his vehicle, cracked open a beer, and took a long drink. The young couple froze, caught between confusion and shock. Finally, the officer lifted his can in a lazy salute. "Cheers. This is a great spot to get away from all the noise. You two want a cold one too?" Thomas forced a tight smile, unease in his voice. "No, but thank you. We were just about to drive home now. Have a good evening." "Suit yourself?" the officer replied casually, taking another sip. Thomas and Lillian quickly gathered their things and got into their car. As Thomas pulled away, they spoke in hushed tones about how bizarre the encounter had been. A cop drinking in uniform, sitting on his cruiser, acting so strangely. 5 minutes later, as they drove slowly down the winding logging road, Thomas caught sight of something in the rearview mirror. His stomach dropped. The cruiser was following them, its vintage red beacon light spinning wildly. There was no siren, just the eerie glow of that single light as the car came speeding up behind them. Maybe it's just an emergency call he's responding to, Thomas said, trying to convince himself. I'm driving slow. I haven't done anything. He pulled over, expecting the officer to pass. But the cruiser didn't pass. It slowed to a stop right behind them. Both their hearts pounded as the officer climbed out, staggering slightly. His words came slurred as he shouted, "Please, can you both get out of the vehicle?" Thomas had enough of this fraud. His gut instincts took over. He slammed his foot on the gas, tires spitting gravel as their car sped forward down the twisting mountain road. The officer scrambled back into his cruiser and gave chase, the single red light spinning in the darkening woods. The road snaked dangerously through the mountains. Thomas gripped the wheel, pushing the car fast as he could down the sketchy old dirt road, while Lillian held on tight, tears welling in her eyes. Behind them, the old cruiser barreled after them, weaving recklessly from side to side. In the rearview mirror, Thomas saw the moment it happened. The officer took a curve too wide, the cruiser fishtailed, and with a violent bang, the cruiser went off the road and smashed into a big tree. The red beacon spun wildly for a moment from the trees, and then shut off as Thomas continued to speed down the road. Thomas didn't stop. He drove until the dirt turned to pavement, until the mountain was far behind them, and city lights glowed in the distance ahead. Only then did they let out the breath they'd been holding in. They chose not to call the police, and just tried to forget the experience up at Mystery Lake. They never returned again, and informed others never to go up to Mystery Lake or travel in that area. The sun was dipping low when Tyler's pickup truck rolled onto Ashwood Road, a rutted old logging trail that hadn't seen real use in decades. Dust billowed up behind the truck, catching the last streaks of gold in the sky. Tyler was behind the wheel, his best friends Marcus and Jake riding along for a camping trip, each of them buzzing with that reckless energy only a camping trip could bring. They had beer in the cooler, firewood loaded in the bed of the truck, and a whole weekend of nothing but forest ahead. No cell service, no houses, no other cars passing them on this old remote road. Then, up ahead, something unexpected broke the rhythm. A car sat angled on the shoulder, a silver sedan with its hazard lights flashing. Two women stood by the open trunk, one crouched beside a flat tire. They were striking, almost out of place on a forgotten road like this. Both women looked the same age as the three friends, mid-20s, hair shining in the low light, clothes fitted like they'd stepped out of a casual night downtown rather than a lonely patch of wilderness. "Dude," Marcus muttered, "are we in a horror movie or something? What are the odds?" Jake leaned forward between the seats, grinning. "Odds don't matter. Look at them. We're not just driving past. Pull over." Tyler slowed down, pulling his truck over near the women. They looked up with relief spreading across their faces. The taller one, blonde with piercing green eyes, waved with a smile. The other, shorter with dark curls, smiled wide enough to show dimples. "It's a flat tire," the blonde explained when Tyler hopped out. "There is no service out here. We've been stuck here for over an hour, and it's getting dark. Can you guys please help?" The men exchanged glances between them and agreed to get to work on this flat tire. Marcus grabbed the jack from the trunk. Jake joked shamelessly as he helped, earning giggles and playful touches on the arm. The women introduced themselves as Alyssa and Kara, their voices warm, their gratitude obvious. "You guys are lifesavers," Kara said, her hand lingering on Jake's shoulder. "Seriously, we didn't know what we were going to do out here." The job finished quickly. The tire was swapped, the tools packed. Dusk deepened into purple shadows, the forest pressing closer. Alyssa brushed a strand of blonde hair behind her ear and flashed a smile that made Tyler's stomach flip. "We should repay you somehow," she said, leaning against the car. "We've got some drinks in the trunk. Maybe a quick toast before you head off?" Jake grinned instantly. "Hell yeah." Marcus hesitated. "Camping trip, remember? We need to set up camp before it's pitch black." But the women insisted. The trunk popped open, revealing a cooler. Cold beer clinked into waiting hands. Tyler sipped reluctantly. Alyssa was almost too close, her perfume strangely sweet against the dirt and pine of the woods. Then, something shifted. "Thanks for stopping," Alyssa whispered. "We were hoping someone would." The woods came alive with movement. Men emerged from the trees, 6, 7. Faces half covered by scarves and dirt, hands clutching bats, chains, knives that gleamed in the fading light. The circle closed fast around Tyler and his friends. Jake dropped his beer. "What the hell is this?" Marcus raised his fists, his voice trembling. "Back off." The women only stepped aside, folding their arms. Their roles were complete. The trap had sprung. A voice from the group cut through the silence. "Keys, wallets, phones, please and thank you." His tone was calm, deliberate, almost rehearsed. The women climbed back into their car, untouched and unafraid. Kara looked out the window with a smirk. Alyssa blew Tyler a mocking kiss through the glass. Tyler's pulse thundered. They could hand it all over, maybe get away. But he knew that this could be big trouble for his group of friends. Out here, on a forgotten road with no signal, no houses, no witnesses. This could be far more troubling than just robbery.
Dr. Doom Room Pizza, where every...